I already have a few lip liner formulas that I genuinely love, so I don't really need any more, especially because I seem to buy the same colour each time anyway. But Summer Fridays launched their SoftLine Lip Liners. They did actually send me the full shade range, but generally I'm only really interested in browns, and I wondered if these could replace anything in my current lineup of favourites. These are the formulas I use most: the Huda Beauty Lip Contour 2.0, the Dior Rouge Dior Contour, the Lisa Eldridge Sculpt and Shade, the Makeup by Mario Ultra Suede Sculpting Lip Pencil, and the Makeup Forever Artist Colour Pencil. So these are near perfect formulas for me, and they give a nice balance between being creamy but long wear. So Summer Fridays has some strong competition, and I want to see where it directly ranks in comparison to these. So for me, a good lip liner needs to have that pigment payoff. That is the least I expect. All of these have that, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But it also needs to be creamy, so easy to glide. I don't want it tugging on my lips. My lips can get quite dry, so I don't like drier formulas. I just find them very uncomfortable to wear. I want the ability to apply and blend with other products, but I don't want the formula so creamy that I can't get a sharp lip liner. I do like a really defined edge. I don't mind a little transfer, but I want my lip liner to last. I don't want to apply it and it's sliding off less than an hour later. Quite a few points, but that's what I'm mentally checking off anytime I'm trying a lip liner. To sum these up briefly, the Summer Fridays SoftLine lip liners retail for £21. I feel like that's quite high for lip liners, but the ones I like seem to be about £20. It's pretty comparable with most of the ones here. There's a couple that are more expensive than that. And there's 8 shades in total, so it's not a huge amount of shades, but it's a nice mix of pinks and browns. A lot of the more pinky shades are too light for me, or at least lighter than I would prefer. So I definitely gravitate towards the more brown shades. I mean, I do in general with most brands. I like a brown lip liner. So for me, this shade range is absolutely fine. They probably could have added some more that were deeper, maybe a couple of reds, but I think this is a pretty cohesive line for Summer Fridays as a brand. It makes sense for them. And the pencils themselves are wooden, which is my personal favorite. I do prefer a wooden pencil liner. And the formula is creamy, but with a matte finish. And the brand describes it as smooth, blendable, long wearing, with ingredients like hyaluronic filling spheres and mixes of oils and waxes, kind of what you see from a lot of brands. The addition of the hyaluronic acid is nice, I suppose, to make it more moisturizing. And this is all meant to help it glide across the lips without tugging or dragging. So honestly, from how it's described, it sounds like my ideal formula and very similar to some of my existing favorites. And in reality, now that I've got to try it, the texture is creamy. It does glide across the lips, but it's not so creamy that it doesn't set. And then once it's set, it feels like it stays on for quite a while. It's not transfer proof, but it does last well on the lips. The question for me really is, where did these sit amongst my favorites? How does it compare, and would I replace any of these with this? And the best way for me to break it down is to look at the texture and the longevity and the shades, because that is what's most important to me. So with the texture, because that is probably top for me, I need a creamy formula, and these are a creamy formula. And in comparison to my favorites, actually I would say Huda and Dior have the creamiest texture. So these two just sit right within that sweet spot for me. Once they set down, they actually stay put. They're really comfortable. They don't slip and slide around. Summer Fridays isn't far off, but it's not quite as good as these two. I do find that the matte texture can emphasize the dryness of my lips, but I'm usually applying it with something else, so it's not really the end of the world. I'll put it on and it might look a little bit dry, but obviously once I go in with lip balm, lip gloss, whatever's going on top, it's not really an issue. But I do think it has a really nice balance, and I would say it's actually more similar to Lisa Eldridge, Makeup Forever and Makeup by Mario. They're almost like identical formulas, to be honest with you. Obviously they're not, and there's going to be slight differences in ingredients, and this is maybe the tiniest bit creamier, but they're kind of on par for me. So if you love the texture of these, you're gonna like this as well. And then when it comes to creaminess, there's a fine line between creamy but not too creamy, and I say that because I also like a really sharp line, and because these are all wooden pencils, I feel like it's very easy to get a sharp lip liner. And that is unfortunately where these two fall down, because they don't sharpen as cleanly as I would like. The Dior, it looks like it's wood, but also looks plastic at the same time. And it just never seems to sharpen quite as sharp as I want with any of the sharpeners I have. It always comes out a bit jaggedy. And with the Huda one, it has a built-in sharpener, which I always find really adorable. But in reality, you waste a lot of products trying to get the tip very pointed, so I don't sharpen it very often. But if I wanted a cleaner line with this, I would use it. And then even though I like a creamy formula, I still want my lip liner to last on my lips. So I think it's really important to have a texture that applies creamy, is easy to blend, but then stays put. And honestly, the Summer Fridays is kind of on par with most of my lip liners. The only one that is slightly more long wearing is the Dior. I feel like Dior just has a lot more staying power and it just doesn't budge as much as the others. I would say these definitely transfer, they fade, they smudge, but they still perform really well. You're not gonna have to top up your lip liner all the time, but you are gonna notice some comes off. I've seen some people say they're transfer proof. They're not, and I don't think Summer Fridays has said that anywhere. Summer Fridays sits comfortably with my favourites in terms of longevity. It's only Dior really that is the different one here, and it's not by much. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is shade range, which is something that's really important to me. But I feel like in beauty, no one's really doing anything dramatically different. We've come to this point in beauty where everyone's just creating the same thing over and over and over. And I don't know if it's like one of those things where because there's so many brands, people want to make sure that they sell. So I find most brands when it comes to lip liners just create a load of pinks, a load of nudes, and the nudes are basically just pink. They're not really brown. That's kind of it. And the shades don't usually have much variation in undertone or depth. I think given that this is such a small range, they've done well to do a mix of pinks and browns. But I do think it's more balanced in comparison to some other brands that actually have more shades. And if I compare it to my favourite brands, Makeup Forever is one that does a bit more variety when it comes to depths, different undertones, different finishes even. They just launched, I think, more like shimmery versions of these, which was interesting. They call it the artist colour pencil because you can use it on your eyes, you can use it on your brows, you can use it across the face basically, so it's not just a lip liner. So maybe that's why their shades are a little more different. And the reason I love this particular lip liner from Lisa Eldridge, because she does have another one, but this one is focused on like true skin nudes. She has different depths and they have different undertones, so she has warm, cool and neutral. But she does have another lip liner formula which has more like vivid pinks and bright reds, and they match her lipsticks and lip glosses. And then Makeup by Mario has a good mix of pinks, browns, reds, different tones, different depths. And then Dior has a lot of shades, but they all lean really warm, really pink, really red. Even this that you think is going to be a brown, it's called Nude Line. It's a really red undertone. It's a beautiful colour. I actually really like it. It's one of my favourites, but it's just not what I was expecting when I bought it. And I think they only have one brown shade, so I would like to see more variety for them in terms of more true nudes and browns and like skin tone colours. Kind of a similar story with Huda. She has a few more browns, but they're all very warm. So I literally only use this shade, which is called Rich Brown. So for 8 shades, I feel like the Summer Fridays one is pretty balanced and very in keeping with their branding. You're not going to see out their colours from Summer Fridays. This is very them. So overall, seeing as this was a comparison to my favourites, I would say these sit somewhere in the middle. And they're very similar to Makeup Forever, Makeup by Mario, and Lisa Eldridge. They're maybe the tiniest bit creamier, but in terms of how they perform, how they wear, they are very similar to what I own already. So final verdict, the Summer Fridays formula, really beautiful. I think it's one I'll actually use a lot. I don't know yet if it's going to overtake the Dior and the Huda for me, which are quietly my top 2. I don't think I really ranked them all, but I think I gravitate towards those the most. Then maybe Lisa Eldridge, then Makeup by Mario, and the Makeup Forever maybe last out of those 5. And I think within that, Summer Fridays is going to sit somewhere within the middle. The differences are very, very, very subtle. I agree with the no tug claim. It's easy to use, it's easy to glide, and it lasts fairly well on the lips. So if you already own the formulas I mentioned, you probably don't need these unless there's a specific shade that you want to try or is missing from your collection. But if you haven't tried any of them and you like a slightly creamy liner that will last well, this is a really solid formula. But if you want a little more longevity, I'd go with the Dior or the Huda. Or if you want a wider shade range, I'd go for Makeup by Mario or Lisa Eldridge if you want more true skin undertones. Not a bad launch by any means, actually on par with a lot of my favourites. And I will try and make myself use a lot more of some different lip liner shades. I do gravitate towards the same shade over and over and over. And that's probably why I feel like I don't need any more lip liners for once. But I would love to know if you've tried any of these formulas and how you feel about them. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.